Emily and Mark Thompson never imagined that their quiet suburban home would become the setting for a nightmare. Behind the laughter of their children and the perfection of their daily routines, something sinister was unfolding, captured silently by the very cameras meant to protect them. What happened next would shock a community and reveal a horrifying truth no one was prepared to face. In the quiet, tree-lined streets of Maplewood, the Thompson family's home stood as a symbol of comfort and warmth. To outsiders, it seemed like the perfect life: a beautiful house, a loving husband, and two cheerful children. Emily Thompson, the mother, was known throughout the neighborhood for her generosity and charm. She spent her mornings volunteering at the local school, helping organize bake sales and art fairs, and her afternoons were dedicated to her children, Lily and Ben. She often baked treats for neighbors, attended every school event, and maintained a home so spotless it seemed almost unreal. The family's life appeared ordinary in the most enviable way, yet the peaceful surface hid an underlying tension that no one could see. Mark Thompson, Emily's husband, worked long hours at a local finance firm. Though he loved his family dearly, he sometimes struggled to connect with Emily, who had a subtle intensity about her that he didn't fully understand. Their relationship, while loving on the surface, was marked by quiet unease. Emily had always been a private person, but recently her behavior had grown more unpredictable. She would spend long hours alone in her room, sometimes pacing or muttering under her breath. Mark attributed it to stress, or perhaps lingering fatigue from raising children, but a small seed of worry began to take root in his mind. The children were blissfully unaware of any tension. Lily, 10 years old, and her younger brother Ben, 7, were happy and energetic, always filling the house with laughter and noise. Their innocent world contrasted sharply with the subtle darkness creeping into their home. Mark, wanting to ensure the family's safety, had recently installed a set of home security cameras. He thought it was a practical measure, something that would bring peace of mind rather than suspicion. The cameras captured ordinary moments: the children playing in the yard, Emily preparing meals, Mark coming home from work. They were meant to protect, not reveal. Yet, as the days passed, the cameras began to capture small anomalies: slight movements at odd hours, shadows that seemed out of place, and moments when Emily's behavior appeared strangely detached. These subtle signs went unnoticed at first, masked by the apparent normalcy of everyday life. No one could have imagined that these cameras, installed for safety, would soon record moments of a horrifying nature. The Thompson family's home, once a symbol of security and warmth, was about to become the stage for events so shocking that they would leave an entire community questioning everything they thought they knew about the woman they had admired for years. The first signs of trouble were almost imperceptible, small enough that Mark could convince himself he was imagining things. Emily's once predictable routine began to shift in ways he couldn't explain. She started spending longer hours in her bedroom, sometimes locking the door behind her. The children would occasionally mention strange noises at night, whispers or footsteps that didn't make sense. Mark initially brushed it off, thinking it was just the house settling or his imagination running wild after a long day at work. But slowly, the little anomalies began to pile up, each one more unsettling than the last. Food in the pantry started disappearing at odd times. Emily would claim she had eaten it, but Mark noticed inconsistencies. The family cat, a lively orange tabby named Milo, vanished one morning. Emily remained unusually calm when asked about it, almost too calm. Mark remembered placing the cat outside for a few minutes the day before, but it never returned. It wasn't just the cat or the missing food. Small household items began appearing in strange places. Toys ended up in unusual corners of the house, dishes stacked incorrectly, and personal belongings moved or hidden without explanation. Each incident, when taken individually, might have seemed trivial, but together, they painted a picture that Mark couldn't ignore. Concerned, Mark decided to check the security camera footage more regularly, initially expecting to find some rational explanation. The footage revealed nothing at first, just ordinary household activity: Emily moving through the house, the children playing, and the family going about their day. Yet, as he watched more closely, he noticed small, unsettling details. Emily would sometimes stand motionless for long periods, staring blankly at walls or corners. Other times, she moved objects silently, her expression unreadable, almost mechanical. There were moments when she seemed unaware of the cameras altogether, and her actions became more erratic with each passing day. Mark's unease grew when he realized that Emily's strange behavior wasn't limited to brief episodes. She was becoming unpredictable and restless, wandering the house at night, pacing in her room, and occasionally entering the children's rooms without reason. Her calm thought during the day made her nocturnal activity even more disturbing. The footage began to feel like a window into a life he no longer understood, a life that was simultaneously familiar and terrifying. Mark started to wonder if Emily was struggling with something far deeper than stress or fatigue. The realization settled over him like a cold weight. The home he thought was safe might now be hiding something far more sinister. And the cameras intended to protect them were quietly documenting a growing nightmare. As Mark continued to review the security footage, the unease that had been gnawing at him transformed into full-blown fear. The camera in the living room captured moments that seemed impossible to explain. Emily's behavior had escalated from odd to disturbing. She would stand completely still in the darkened corners of the house, her eyes wide and unblinking, as though staring at something invisible. Sometimes she would slowly move across the room, touching objects lightly, as if testing them, or arranging them in ways that made no sense. At times, she appeared to be listening intently to sounds no one else could hear, her head tilting slightly, her lips moving as if responding to a silent conversation. One night, the footage showed her entering the children's rooms. She lingered near their beds for minutes, watching them sleep without touching them, her expression unreadable. Mark's stomach twisted as he realized that these moments, captured on camera, had gone unnoticed in real time. He had assumed Emily was simply restless or perhaps checking on the children, but the footage revealed a precision and intent in her movements that was impossible to ignore. Her nightly rituals grew longer and more deliberate, moving through the house like a shadow that no one could catch. More unsettling was the pattern of her behavior. She would wander to the kitchen, open drawers, and remove sharp objects or utensils, then return to the dark corners of the home. She seemed to be preparing something, though what remained unclear. Mark noticed that she sometimes whispered softly, words lost in the static of the recording, yet the tone was urgent and obsessive. Objects would be rearranged in ways that were nonsensical, yet there was a strange consistency to it, as though she was following a plan known only to her. At first, Mark questioned his own mind, wondering if he was overreacting, but the accumulation of evidence was undeniable. Each night, Emily's actions became more meticulous and secretive, and her calm daytime demeanor only intensified the sense of dread. It was as if she was living in two worlds, one visible to the family, and one that unfolded in the shadows. The security cameras, intended to ensure safety, had instead become a lens into a horrifying double life. Mark could no longer dismiss what he was seeing as mere stress or exhaustion. Something deeply wrong was taking hold, and he realized he had to act before the situation spiraled completely out of control. The house he had always considered a sanctuary was now a stage for a terrifying, unfolding mystery, one that the cameras had begun to reveal in chilling detail. Mark knew he had to understand the full scope of what was happening, so he secretly installed additional cameras inside the house, hidden in corners and hallways where Emily wouldn't notice them. At first, he hoped they would confirm his fears were exaggerated, that there was some innocent explanation. But as he reviewed the footage over the following days, the unease that had been simmering in his chest boiled into sheer terror. Emily's nightly movements had become increasingly methodical and strange. She seemed aware of the camera's presence at times, yet at other moments she acted as though guided by an unseen force, her movements precise and almost ritualistic. The most disturbing discovery came when he noticed something or someone lurking in the shadows. In several clips, a dark, indistinct figure appeared just behind Emily, moving in tandem with her yet never fully visible. It was as though her actions were being influenced by a presence no one else could see. Mark's heart raced as he rewound the footage repeatedly, trying to convince himself it was a trick of the light or a shadow cast by furniture. But the figure appeared consistently across different cameras, always following her movements, vanishing only when she turned suddenly. One night, the footage captured Emily leaving the house under the cover of darkness. She carried a small spade and moved with deliberate, quiet steps into the backyard. Mark watched in horror as she began digging, her figure bending and twisting, creating a hole that grew steadily larger. The camera angle made it impossible to see exactly what she was doing, but the intensity of her movements and the focus in her eyes were undeniable. The next morning, Mark ran outside to check the ground, but it appeared undisturbed, smooth and unbroken, as if nothing had happened. Confusion mixed with fear, and he felt powerless to stop whatever was unfolding. Panicked, Mark contacted the police, showing them the footage and explaining what he had observed. Officers promised to investigate, but before they could act, Emily disappeared. The children were found alone in the house, frightened and withdrawn, unable to explain where their mother had gone. Mark and the authorities were left piecing together a puzzle from fragments of video and the children's frightened reactions. The home, once a safe and loving environment, had become a place of uncertainty and terror. Each clip on the hidden cameras offered more questions than answers, showing a woman who had transformed into someone unrecognizable. What had started as subtle, strange behavior had escalated into something frighteningly deliberate, leaving a chilling question hanging over the house. What exactly had Emily been planning, and what darkness had taken over her mind? When investigators finally focused on the area of the backyard Emily had been digging, they uncovered objects that made hearts sink. Buried beneath layers of soil were scattered children's toys, old family photographs, and torn pieces of clothing. It was a grim tableau of the family's life, distorted and hidden in dirt. Every item told a story of innocence violated and domestic normalcy shattered. Investigators realized that the home security cameras had not just captured strange behavior, they had recorded a mental collapse that culminated in a series of actions both bizarre and horrifying. Over the next several weeks, authorities pieced together Emily's history, discovering that she had suffered from deep-seated psychological trauma stemming from her own childhood. She had hidden the severity of her struggles behind the facade of a devoted mother and community volunteer, masking the darkness that had been building for years. The cameras, originally installed for security, had become a witness to a slow, terrifying unraveling of her mind. Each clip of her wandering through the house, whispering to unseen entities, and meticulously rearranging objects revealed a pattern of obsession and dissociation that had gone unnoticed in daily life. Eventually, Emily was found wandering in a nearby forest, miles away from her home. She appeared disoriented, unable to explain how she had ended up there or what had compelled her actions. Though physically unharmed, her mind remained fractured, and authorities realized that the most chilling consequences of her behavior were not yet fully understood. The children were placed in the care of relatives, and the community struggled to reconcile the image of the kind, helpful neighbor with the disturbing reality captured on the cameras. The footage went viral, shocking viewers across the country. People were captivated and horrified by the stark contrast between the normality of everyday life and the dark events happening behind closed doors. The Thompson home, once seen as idyllic, became a symbol of how appearances can be deceiving. The story was a grim reminder that danger can hide in the most familiar places, and that even those we trust the most may be wrestling with unseen struggles. In the end, the cameras did more than protect. They revealed the truth in a way no one could ignore. They documented the unraveling of a mother's mind, the fear and confusion of her children, and the fragility of domestic life. What had seemed like minor oddities, small movements in the dark, whispered words, unexplained disappearances were actually signs of a deep psychological collapse. The Thompson family's tragedy served as a haunting lesson. Sometimes, the most terrifying acts occur not in the shadows of strangers, but within the very walls meant to keep us safe. The home that once promised comfort became a silent witness to a horror that no one could have predicted.